important role to play in helping to ensure that all perspectives and assessments and opinions are presented and available to inform decision-making in key areas of public policy and legislative proposals. I strongly welcome the Government's decision to introduce the Registration of Lobbying Bill 2014 to the House, as I believe it marks an important step in the process of helping to rebuild public trust in the political system by throwing light on its interaction with those who seek to shape and influence policy across all sections of society. The intention of the legislation is to strengthen the degree of openness and the scope for public scrutiny of the interactions and engagements between all sections of society with our political and administrative systems. This legislation will allow the wider public to reach informed, evidence-based judgments about the extent to which interest groups are accessing key decision-makers across the political and public service systems, and would increase public understanding of lobbying activity in Ireland. The legislation also clarifies that what I quote, designated public official, unquote, is. It includes members of the Oireachtas, ministers and ministers for state and their special advisers. It also includes councillors, members of the European Parliament as well. I understand that it is envisaged that on commencement the bill would apply to communications with officials at Secretary-General and Assistant Secretary level in the civil service and all equivalent levels in local authorities, and I believe that the Minister may prescribe further public servants as designated public officials and will have regard to the public interest in arriving at such a decision. The legislation will provide for a register of lobbying to make information available to the public on the identity of those communicating on specific policy, legislative matters or prospective decisions with designated public officials. The bill allows for the development of a code of conduct by the Standards in Public Office Commission, and it also provides restrictions and conditions on the taking up of certain employments by certain designated officials for a specified period of time where a possible conflict of interest arise. I think there are examples of this in the last decade or so where county managers have retired and they immediately took up positions working for property developers. And I think that is something that needs to be addressed, and this bill does address that. The legislation also states that a lobbyist must be registered before carrying on our lobbying activities, unless it's the first time to lobby. In that case, the registration and the return must be completed before the next return date. A regular review of the effectiveness of the legislation is provided for. The first review should be held no later than 1 year after the commencement of the legislation, with each subsequent review should be held every 5 years thereafter. Reports and the findings of recommendations of these reviews will be presented to both houses of the Oireachtas within 6 months of the end of the relevant period. The legislation establishes that lobbying activity is carried out by persons in the course of their business in return for payment by a client, an employer or his or her employee on behalf of the employer, or any person on matters about the development or zoning of land. It defines the communications which constitute lobbying as those that are excluded. It also determines that normal citizen interaction with public representatives relating to his or her private affairs communications by employers with 10 employees or less relating to the affairs of that employer will not be included in the register unless the communication is in respect of land zoning or development. Planning matters relating to an individual's principal private residence would also be exempt, and the legislation also sets out other exemptions. Such exemptions include those relating to international relations, factual information sought by a public body or other information sought by and published by a public body, matters relating to posing a threat to the security of persons or the security of the state, and communication with members of a group established by a minister or public body subject to a requirement to comply with the Transparency Code. When lobbying is mentioned, I always think of the Mahon Tribunal and the lobbyist, Mr. Frank Dunlop. And Mr. Dunlop played a starring role in both the Mahon and Flood tribunals. Mr. Dunlop did send me lobbying materials in the 1990s in relation to the Pennine Holdings and Baldoyle, which figured in the Mahon Tribunal, and also in relation to development near Clare Hall and Malahide Road in the Dublin City Council area. I recall on one occasion the maps he sent me were completely wrong. But I'm very happy indeed to see this legislation before the House. Lobbying does play an important role in politics, but it has also has the potential to be badly and seriously abused, and I have seen this happen in my constituency when the lobbying process was used to facilitate corruption, as was evidenced in the Maher Tribunal. I believe this legislation will help to shine a light on the lobbying industry, and I very strongly recommend the bill to the House. Thank you.
Thank you.